I can remember years ago when Joe Stafford recorded Moonlight in Vermont, and then the second theme, Stan Getz and Johnny Smith, the guitarist, recording Moonlight in Vermont. And this third version here with Gene Bertoncini and Michael Moore. Gene, the guitarist, Michael, the bassist. And you may have heard them on Noah Adams, Good Evening, earlier today, and then perhaps you were at Unitarian Church in St. Paul. Or perhaps you're one of those people that's always on the march and moving through the country, and you drop into Zeno's in New York on Manhattan Island in the lower section and hear Gene and Michael together in those intimate settings in that fine restaurant. I'd like you to meet Gene Bertoncini now. He's taking a moment out before he flies back to New York, where he'll be on stand at Zeno's Sunday evening. And Gene, welcome in behalf of all of us here.
Thanks very much, Leigh. It's a pleasure to be here again, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you on the show.
Well, it's certainly, an annual event having you in this territory, and I hope it becomes a more frequent visit as time goes by.
That'd be great with me. I love the town. I love the people. I actually go back a long way, but there's been a long period of time since before this last little series started, and it's nice to be here.
Gene Bertoncini, the theme Moonlight in Vermont reminds me, of course, of Stan Getz and Johnny Smith particularly, because Johnny spent some time here, but he also worked on the NBC staff in New York, and I know he's an influence in your life.
Right, he was my first important teacher. I used to go to those studio jobs, and in those days, they would do about 4 or 5 radio shows a day, and it was great. And this one particular show, Stan and Johnny and Eddie Safransky and I forget, there was an organist on it. I think Sanford Gold, also a pianist in those days, was on them. And I used to wander around the studios as a kid, and because I was part of a television show myself that was featured youngsters called the Horn and Hardhart's Children's Hour. And
oh, yes.
Yeah, and I wandered into one of the studios and heard this phenomenal guitarist, and who also played trumpet and played piano. And I just went up to him. I said, "I want to study with you." And sure enough, he took interest in me and was kind enough to give me some lessons. And of course, you're referring to the hit record he made. I guess it was his most important record on Rooster Records.
Yes, produced by Teddy Reeg, a legendary music man.
Uh-huh.
Gene, it seems to me, as I think about it, you're a teacher also and a coach. Is it because Johnny Smith took you under his wing and helped stimulate your learning process that you now teach, or does it stem from something else?
Well, I think that must be part of it too. Is it that you never forget those strong influences in your life? I don't think you can do anything unless you have those kind of people's coattails to hang on to. And I consider Johnny Smith one of those people. And just through records, I consider Tal Farlow another one. And I think it also has to do with one's personality and how he's brought up, and if there's a certain kind of spirit that he can convey and enjoy conveying. I think that has to do with it too. And I come from a warm Italian family, and I'm sure some of that has to do with a genuine liking for communicating some of this to younger people, and some of it is very selfish too, because of what you get back from a young person in terms of the challenge they give you, and also the support they ultimately give you it's just a very positive and self-serving thing sometimes to be a teacher.
That's very fascinating. Gene, you were in another learning experience and setting, and it involved Notre Dame University, and you were an architectural student there, as I understand it.
Right.
But you were also involved with music, and you were a part of the early days of the annual Notre Dame Jazz Festival.
Isn't that something? That's really become quite a fest. I was there when the first one actually happened, and I think one of the more influential. Do you remember a name? I know you told me you recently read about that festival in a book.
Yes, there is a book on it, a paperback.
And I forget the names of the guy who produced the first one. A friend of mine named Tim Ryan, who now announces a lot of CBS Sports, was one of the producers. You probably, if anybody follows I think boxing he's very strong on, and local a lot of local football, and actually quite a bit of everything. And Tim was one of the first guys to organize the festival, and it became the most popular college festival, if not the most important one.
And it always had a panel of very important reviewers, as I remember, too.
Right.
And still does today.
When I was there, the very first one had Stan Kenton, and I believe Art Van Dam. Remember Art?
Oh, I certainly do.
Chicago. And
one of the great accordion players in jazz, and
right.
One of the few.
Yeah, one of the few. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Herb Pilhofer was...
Yes, Herb was on the Notre Dame Jazz Festival as a student participating, and so was Dave Carr and Gary Berg, if I remember correctly. Well, what was your role at that time in the first festival? What were you doing?
I just entered a group that I had at the time from Notre Dame with a singer named Vince Morrow. I had a quintet that used to play all the dances and smaller parties there. And I was really the band leader on the campus at that time. In those days, we only had one band, and I was it, and that was great. It was great for me, and I didn't think the big band was good enough to enter a festival because we didn't really have any original charts. So I entered a small group, and I had a pretty good singer with me, Vince Morrow, that who later was to go to New York and ultimately became one of the pages in NBC, and ultimately introduced me to Merv Griffin. And so I got to play on the Griffin show with a trio named with Sonny Igo and George Shaw real early in my life. But that's how that all mysteriously worked. But my role in the first Notre Dame Festival was simply to participate as a contestant and try not to embarrass the school.
I see. Well, you're a pretty elegant performer, so how could you embarrass anybody? Gene Bertoncini is the guest of Minnesota Public Radio for the moment. You heard him earlier performing with his co-partner Michael Moore, the bassist, and we're just taking time out. He's about to escape St. Paul and Minneapolis in the cold weather and head for the warmth of Zeno's Sunday night. And you have a very special festival that you're going to be playing music for in New York coming up soon. What is that?
Well, actually, tomorrow I'm catching an early plane back tomorrow to participate in a jazz nativity at the wonderful church in New York, St. Bartholomew's, and my role is somewhat minor, but it's nice to be a part of that. And the primary guest artists on the show are Clark Terry and Phil Woods and Tito Puente. But the band that I'm playing with has some really fine players: Lou Soloff, tenor on trumpet, and Bob Kindred, the tenor saxophone player, and Jerry Dodgen and Steve Laspina on bass, and a wonderful pianist named Ted Rosenthal, who just won the Thelonious Monk competition in Washington, and on drums is Akira Tana, and they have singers there, Jackie and Roy, can't name them all, but it's a nice event. And
when does it begin? What time tomorrow?
3:00 in the afternoon.
Oh, hey everybody, let's get on board and go.
Come on.
Come on along to St.
Yeah, I
Bartholomew.
think it's about at least 10 degrees warmer there.
All right, well, we'll all escape.
But maybe the sun won't be shining, and I think it's going to be shining here tomorrow, so it's not all that bad.
One other thought, Gene. There's quite a line between jazz spirituality and the ecumenical performance in settings like St. Peter's and St. Bartholomew's that make another performance area for jazz.
I think it's magnificent to have that opportunity, those spaces to play in, and really, why not? The music is jazz music as well as all music is a gift from above. You know that I think that when treated properly, makes just enhances one's spiritual life also. So I hope that without taking away from the religious aspect of the buildings, the music, just continues to prosper in those places too.
Thank you very much, Gene, for sharing those thoughts with us, and have a safe trip back, and well, onwards and upwards with the arts.
Well, Leigh, thank you. You're the guy that's doing it. It's a lot of fun to come out and play for people and feel like you've brought something to them. But most it's so great to get the warmth back from the people and the applause and the love that comes from being a player and your support, and that's the kind of stuff that really makes it all happen. So thank you, and thank your listeners, and have me back. I'd love to come back to this town.
All right, we'll do everything we can.
Okay, Leigh.
Gene Bertoncini, send your regards and our regards to Michael Moore as well.
I will, Leigh.
Good night, Gene Bertoncini.
Good night, Leigh. Thank you.